The moment that still plays in my head didn't start with shouting or drama. It started with a finger, a perfectly manicured finger pointing straight at my seat, and a woman saying, like it was the most obvious thing in the world, "She's not sitting there. Move her." And just like that, the cabin went quiet. That weird, heavy quiet where, something ugly just stepped into the room, and yeah, that happened right before the door even closed. I remember sitting there thinking, here we go again, that familiar feeling sliding into my chest, the one you get when someone has already decided who you are before you've said a word. I was tired, really tired, the kind of tired that isn't about sleep, but about always having to be on, always having to prove something, always feeling like one wrong move, and you confirm whatever story they already wrote about you. So, I didn't snap, I didn't raise my voice, I just looked up from my tablet and said calmly, "Is there a problem?" And she laughed, actually laughed, leaned closer and said, "Not yet, but there will be once we're in the air." You know that moment when your gut tells you, yeah, this is about to go somewhere stupid. Yeah, that. My name is Maya Carter, and I'm a black engineer. Not the flashy kind people expect, no power suit, no giant jewelry, no performative confidence. I dress comfortably. I travel light hair, usually tied back, face bare, because after a certain point in life you stop trying to look powerful, and you just are. That day, I was flying back to Amsterdam after a brutal week of negotiations for my company Meridian Aeroworks, and all I wanted was to sit down, finish reviewing a few documents, and disappear into my headphones for a few hours. This wasn't a commercial flight, not really. It was a private charter, the kind where the terminal smells like espresso and money, where nobody lines up, where staff speak softly and move like they're part of the furniture. I was sitting in the lounge, tucked into a corner working, when she came in like a thunderclap. Loud heels, loud voice, complaining about a scratch on her luggage, dragging her husband behind her like he was an accessory she forgot at home. You could tell instantly this woman wore her wealth like armor. Like if she kept it shiny enough, no one could touch her. She scanned the room and her eyes landed on me. I felt it before I saw it, that tightening, that irritation. She went straight to the concierge and said, pointing at me, "Is she supposed to be here?" I thought this place was exclusive. The concierge looked at me, then at her, and I could see the panic in his eyes because he knew exactly who I was and exactly who she thought she was. He told her politely that all guests were verified, and she leaned in and whispered not quietly enough, "She looks like staff. I don't want staff sitting with us." Her husband tried to hush her, and she brushed him off like lint. I stayed quiet because honestly I've learned something over the years. People like that don't need your response, they need your reaction. And I wasn't going to give her one. Boarding was announced shortly after, and we walked down to the jet. I boarded first, took my seat at the front on the left, buckled in, opened my folder. A few minutes later I heard her heels again, and then she stopped dead in the aisle. "No," she said loudly, "absolutely not." The flight attendant stepped forward with that practiced smile, and the woman shoved her coat at her and said, "You can take this, and then you can move her." She pointed at me like I was furniture that had been placed wrong. She went on about how she paid full price, how she expected privacy, how she wasn't spending 7 hours sitting across from someone dressed like they were going to the gym. Her husband murmured something about it being fine, and she snapped at him saying it wasn't. I closed my folder slowly, and that sound, that soft slap, cut through the cabin. I looked at her and said evenly, "If you have a seating issue, you should talk to the crew so we can leave on time." She smiled in that nasty way people do when they think they've got the upper hand and said, "Oh, you talk like you belong here. What are you, some diversity hire consultant?" And there it was out in the open, thick and ugly. The flight attendant asked her to lower her voice, and the woman poked her in the chest and threatened her job, threatened to sue, threatened to ruin people like she was ordering coffee. I remember looking at her husband, then really looking, and he wouldn't meet my eyes. He stared at the floor, hands clenched, saying nothing. And that hurt more than her words because I've seen that silence before, the kind that pretends it's neutrality but really just protects the person doing harm. The captain came out of the cockpit, then calm, silver-haired, authoritative without being loud. He asked what the problem was, and she lit up like she'd been waiting for him. She told him I was aggressive, that I didn't fit the demographic of the flight, that she wanted me moved. He listened, then looked at me. Not annoyed, not curious, just respectful, and asked Ms. Carter, "How would you like to handle this?" And the way her face changed in that moment, "Yeah, I'll never forget that," she snapped. "Why are you asking her?" And the captain said firmly, "Ma'am, I was speaking to Ms. Carter." I stood up, then stepped into the aisle, smoothed my sweater. She tilted her chin and said, "You can't afford that seat." And I smiled, not because it was funny, but because sometimes the truth lands better when you don't rush it. I said, "You're right, I didn't pay for this seat." She turned toward the cabin triumphant, calling me a freeloader, and I let her have that second just one before I said I didn't pay for the seat because I paid for the plane. The silence after that was unreal. She blinked, said I was lying, said it was a scam. I nodded toward the logo on the headrest, the registration she'd walked past without looking, and explained calmly that Meridian Aeroworks owned the aircraft that I allowed charter use to offset costs, but that she was a guest on my property. The captain confirmed it. The flight attendant confirmed it. Her husband's face went white because he recognized the name now not as a person, but as a threat. She grabbed the armrest and said she had a contract, and I told her the owner reserved the right to deny carriage for offensive conduct, which she'd managed to demonstrate in under 5 minutes. Her husband finally spoke, apologizing, saying they had to get to Amsterdam for a critical meeting. I asked who the meeting was with, and when he said Meridian, yeah, that was the moment everything snapped into place. I told him he wasn't getting on this plane and that he was going to be late because I was the person he was supposed to meet. The captain called airport police. 2 officers came on board, professional, uninterested in theatrics. They asked if I wanted to press charges. I thought about it, I really did, but I was done letting this woman take up any more of my time. I told them to remove them and their bags. She screamed, flailed, knocked over a glass of water, soaked her expensive shoes, and honestly, it felt like the universe adding punctuation. Her husband walked past me without looking up. I sat back down, put my glasses on, opened my folder, and told the crew we were ready. We took off smoothly like nothing had happened. But of course it didn't end there because someone recorded everything. Within hours, the video was everywhere. Her face, her words, her pointing finger, all of it. People identified her husband, identified his company. Boards started distancing themselves, sponsors pulled away, and suddenly the world that had protected her so fiercely decided she was a liability. I didn't celebrate. I didn't feel victorious. Mostly I felt tired. Tired that respect still seems conditional. Tired that my calm gets mistaken for arrogance until people learn what I own. Tired that consequences only seem to show up when power is involved. A week later, I heard her husband resigned not out of moral clarity, but because the heat was too much. And that part matters because it says a lot about how systems work. I did one thing quietly, though. I funded a scholarship through Meridian for girls who want to go into aerospace and engineering, the spaces where people still tell them directly or not that they don't belong. I did it because I know what it's like to sit in a seat someone thinks you didn't earn, to be treated like you're borrowing space instead of owning it. So here's where I want to leave you, because this is the part people argue about. Should I have pressed charges? Should I have gone further? Or was removing them enough? Some people say I was too kind. Others say the public fallout was punishment enough. And some say the real issue